Coverage here on Bear News. We've got a little bit of breaking news into our newsroom for those of you viewing us in the Greeley and Weld County area. Colorado Congressional District 4, which Greeley is in, has just been called by 9 News in Denver for Republican Cory Gardner by a 59% to 36% margin over Democrat Brandon Schaefer. Once again, Cory Gardner called by 9 News in Denver over Democrat Brandon Schaefer 59% to 36%.
It seems that the presidential candidates paid special attention to Colorado this campaign season. Go figure. President Obama made his way to the Meadow at City Park near Denver on October 24th. The cool weather kept the crowd of nearly 16,000 chilled for the president's speech, urging attendees to vote. The president addressed issues such as jobs for veterans, clean energy, and GLBT rights. The crowd was very responsive when the president touched on education and immigration during his speech as well. That was the president's 11th time in Colorado in 2012. It was part of the Forward America tour that targets the swing states. Colorado is a popular place for presidential candidates lately. On Saturday, November 3rd, Mitt Romney, his wife Ann, and the GOP team met in Denver for a Republican rally. Bear News reporter Cordray Vorderbrigge was at the scene to give us the scoop on that one.
I'm here at Fiddler's Green in Englewood, Colorado, where presidential candidate Mitt Romney is joined by over 1,000 of his fans. Because of Colorado's status as a swing state, we're lucky enough to have a lot of presidential attention the few days before the election. Candidate Romney spoke about his plans for this country with 5 key points, pointing out what he'll do if he's elected.
You know as well as I do that people across the country are responding to our 5-part plan to create jobs. You know what they are? Part 1 is about taking full advantage of our energy resources on day 1. Now, secondly, I'm going to boost trade, particularly with Latin America, and I'll finally designate China as a currency manipulator because it's time to trade works for America. Third, I want to send to Congress the Retraining Reform Act to make sure that every worker has the skills they need for a good-paying job. Fourth, I'm going to move to tackle out-of-control spending. I will send Congress the first of several fundamental reforms called the Down Payment on Fiscal Sanity Act. You see, I'm not going to just take office on January 20th. I'm going to take responsibility for that office as well.
Another topic of the evening Mr. Romney touched on was what his opponent does differently than him.
Because words are cheap, and a record is real and it's earned with effort. 4 years ago, candidate Obama promised to do so very much, but he has fallen so very short. I mean, you recall, he promised to be a post-partisan president, but he's been most partisan, dividing, attacking, blaming. He was going to focus on creating jobs. Instead, he focused on creating Obamacare that killed jobs. Unemployment today is higher than when Barack Obama took office. And by the way, he also promised that he would propose a plan by now to save Social Security and Medicare. He did not. I helped turn my state from deficit to surplus, and from job losses to job growth, and from higher taxes to higher take-home pay. This is why I'm running for president. I know how to change the course of the nation. If there's anyone who wonders whether better jobs and better paychecks are things of the past, I have a clear and unequivocal message. With the right leadership, America is about to come roaring back.
Well, there you have it. Colorado may be a swing state, but the crowd was roaring with Romney chants tonight. One in particular counting down the days till election. And now that it's election night, we'll take a look at what the popular vote says. Reporting from Englewood, Colorado, this is Cordray Vorderbrigge for Bear News.
That wasn't the last stop on the Romney Victory Tour before tonight. The Republican team headed to Iowa, Ohio, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, all before tonight. And now we're going to check in with Jamie to see what's happening.
All right, thanks, Jen. As of right now, speaking of the Romney Victory Tour, Arkansas's vote goes to Romney with 60% to 38%, and the electoral count now stands at Obama with 163 and Romney with 163. Shocker. Still a very close race. Dale?
And 160. Okay, well, we'll be right back right after a break. You're watching Decision 2012, brought to you by Bear News.
There are a million places you'd never consider texting. So why would you do it while driving? Leave risky driving to the professionals. Stop the texts, and together we can stop the wrecks.
Mom, can we get some ice cream?
Please, Mom, please.
No, we're having dinner soon.
Please.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Oh, they are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
You must be your fairy godmother.
It doesn't take a fairy godmother to tell you that the right fit means everything. Especially when it comes to car seats. Always choose one that's the right fit for your child's age and size.
Oh, that does make a difference.
Remember, their happily ever afters are in your hands. To find out more, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
Thank you for calling your GED Pep Talk Center. All right, now, are you ready for your GED Pep Talk?
Being nervous is okay. It just shows that you're serious about getting your diploma.
All right, listen, we all need a little nudge sometimes. I don't function without coffee in the morning, but it is going to take more than a double mochaccino to help you here.
A lot of things are scary. Heck, I'm scared of clowns.
No quiero oír. Danny, no lo puedo hacer. Quiero oír. Danny, lo voy a hacer.
DMC, liking your pep talk style.
Just keeping it real, Debs. Just keeping it real.
Louder! Louder! I'm gonna get my GED! Come on! Get your GED!
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
Welcome back to Decision 2012. I'm Megan Pressler. With one final debate, President Obama and Governor Romney have a last chance to sway voters on a national scale. Foreign policy is the name of the game, with both candidates bringing strong arguments to the table.
The final debate of this election season takes place in Boca Raton, where foreign policy is the name of the game. Due to the timing, one of the most talked about foreign policy issues that has been seen throughout this season is the attack that happened on the American consulate in Libya.
But I think it's important to step back and think about what happened in Libya. And keep in mind that I and Americans took leadership in organizing an international coalition that made sure that we were able to, without putting troops on the ground, at the cost of less than what we spent in 2 weeks in Iraq, liberate a country that had been under the yoke of dictatorship for 40 years.
Well, my strategy is pretty straightforward, which is to go after the bad guys, to make sure we do our very best to interrupt them, to kill them, to take them out of the picture. But my strategy is broader than that. That's important, of course. But the key that we're going to have to pursue is a pathway to get the Muslim world to be able to reject extremism on its own.
In regards to foreign policy, some believe that America should step in when they see fit, while others believe that America should stay hands-off in other countries' problems. Here's what Obama and Romney have to say about America's role in the world.
Well, I absolutely believe that America has a responsibility and the privilege of helping defend freedom and promote the principles that make the world more peaceful.
America remains the one indispensable nation. And The world needs a strong America, and it is stronger now than when I came into office.
In regards to war and national security, something key is military spending.
Now, keep in mind that our military spending has gone up every single year that I've been in office. We spend more on our military than the next 10 countries combined.
This, in my view, is the highest responsibility of the President of the United States, which is to maintain the safety of the American people. And I will not cut our military budget.
How much of an impact does foreign policy have on this election? And how big of an impact will this final debate have on who's going to be sitting in the Oval Office for the next 4 years? Only time will tell. I'm Samantha Fox, Bear News.
And now we're going to say hi to Shelby Williams, the Director of Academic Affairs for the Student Senate on Desk. And speaking of foreign affairs, that's what you're here to talk to us about. So I have a question to start out with. You know, we've heard all this about the economy. The economy, you know, in 1992, is the economy stupid? So how much does foreign affairs play a role in this election?
I think foreign affairs plays a lot to do in today's, just the election in general. I think Obama was very much a gunner when he first came to office. I think there was a lot of, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to do this all on my own. And then after a few months, you kind of saw Obama stepping back and taking more advice from his advisors. And you kind of saw that same thing when it came to Libya and the attacks on Libya. Is very much gun, let's make sure we have the information, let's step back, let's make sure we have more information on that, and then we'll direct it towards the people.
Going off that statement of Libya, it has been a big news cast the last couple days. The assault on Chris Stevens. Can you tell me a little bit about the attack on Libya, and is it an Obama shortcoming at all?
I think that was one of those that, we wanted to make sure we had all of the information before we reported to the American people. A lot of times when we have words like terrorist, assault, all these really pejorative terms, they go towards the American people, and it can kind of illustrate issues that we didn't really address. Obama at first tried to say, well, this was a terrorist attack, and he mentioned that multiple times in the debates on foreign policy. Then it was found out, we didn't have a whole lot of military aid in the area. We had a little bit of backing as far as military, but we didn't have enough to say we're going to protect. And I think that's what happened when it came to Libya. We had a lot of a terrorist attack. It looks like it was more planned than we would have liked it to been. Obviously, any kind of terrorist attack, you're going to see a little more foreplanning. You're going to see a little more, as I mentioned, a little more attack. And the military just wasn't there in time to fix the issue.
Do you think there was a mishap in the security protocol?
I think that the area was not near as prepared as it should have been. On the other hand, though, there was no reason to suggest that we might have had an attack in the area. When it comes to intelligence, we have to look at, well, are we going to balance what we know or what has happened in the past, and what can we do moving forward? And I think that might have been seen as a shortcoming to the American people, but again, I think it was one of those issues where we didn't quite have enough information in time to make a decision fast enough.
Let's move on to Russia. Russia has been the world's largest natural gas reserve. What does this say about America? What does this affect, or how does this affect America?
When we hear about gas policy in America, we tend to kind of bristle up and really, really want to focus on that, because gas prices are one of those things. America was built on the car. We drive everywhere. We try to, we hit the gas as hard as we can when we're cruising down the road, and so that's something that's huge to Americans. I think Russia is seen, from Romney's perspective, it's seen as a great power. Putin has increased his power over the time. He and Medvedev, Medvedev was elected, but Putin increases his power over time. I think from Romney's perspective, he wants to decrease Russia's energy leverage and increase assistance to the Eastern European countries so that we can create that gas pipeline. And in theory, what that would do is decrease our gas prices. But I think the reality of the situation is, if you see what Obama's been doing with Russia, I don't think it's as big of a threat as we see. Granted, we don't want them to become such an energy superpower that we're so reliant on them that we can't do anything, but I think there's something to be said about Obama's policies and what he's really been looking towards in kind of cooperating with them and really making sure we have a diplomatic area.
That was well covered. And what about Israel? I know that Fox News has said that they are really supporting Romney. Do you have any insight on Israel and Romney?
Wow, Israel is one of those topics that's kind of really hot because there's a lot of history, but it's very modern history. I mean, we basically created the state of Israel back in 1948. And I mean, there's two ways to look at Israel. I think you can say that the U.S. bias towards Israel destabilizes our region's diplomatic areas in the Middle East. But I think if we don't have that strategic position in Israel, we don't have the ability to have a vantage point. And so I think both of those areas have to be really looked at when concerning Israel, and I think either party takes either position.
I have one question to add about Israel, and that is there's been some concern that Obama has been moving back from the close historical alliance with Israel. Right. Do you think that's been the case? Do you think it's had any effect on this election?
I think Obama has a two-track policy. I think on the front end, he says that it doesn't look like he's doing much. But on the back end, I think he's doing things very quietly. I want to say that despite Netanyahu being very difficult to work with, Obama has still kind of increased the diplomacy over in that area, but it's been done very quietly. I think he's increased aid. I mean, if you look at how much aid we've been going over in the past with Obama, what we saw is a $2.7 billion increase to Israel, and that's out of a $5.8 million. So that's 50%. That's all going towards Israel. So I think it's a two-track policy where it doesn't look like we're doing much, but that's to appease the Middle Eastern, and that's where that two-track policy with Israel comes in. I mean, we need to appease the Middle East, but we also need to keep our non-NATO ally in place.
And that does bring up the question about appeasing the Middle East and Arab Spring. That brings up that question, what about Arab Spring, with the president being at least somewhat supportive of Arab Spring, at least in Libya and in Egypt. Does that impact our relationship with Israel?
I think it does. I mean, it's hard to say what will happen next with the Arab Spring, but I think it's important that we don't take a too aggressive approach, because if we take too aggressive approach, our hegemonic tendencies with our military aspects will take it way too far, and we won't necessarily get what we want out of it, and Israel will crash as an ally. But at the same time, if we don't kind of increase our ability to help those areas, then our ability to increase our democracy and our wish for democracy in those areas will decrease. I think it's, again, a very two-track policy. I mean, you have to appease the Middle East and you have to take actions there, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you're not getting too far that direction, because then we get too far into hegemony and they don't feel as if they have a sovereign power in their area.
So what do we do about Syria then?
Syria is a tough one. I mean, Syria is so multifaceted. We have Russia involved with Syria, and that's their big ally. So when working with Russia on Syria, we have to really look at, well, Russia is their ally. So again, we have to look at Russian sovereignty with Syria, because that's where kind of our aggressive attack comes, because Syria and Russia have been known for these huge human rights problems. And so Syria is one of those where, again, we have to take a two-track approach where we say, hey, Russia, we need to scale back these areas. We need to scale back nuclear areas. I mean, we've seen that in some of the treaties. But if we take too much aggression, I think you'll see Putin and Medvedev backing off in their diplomacy, and we'll back off in the progress that Obama has made.
Let's talk about China for a little bit. China is a big powerhouse. Obama said in his third debate that China needs to play by the same rules as everybody else. How do you feel about that? Do you have comments about maybe what Obama and the difference of what Romney wants to do with China?
I think, again, China is one of those interesting things. America is a very young power, and China is not. And that's what makes this kind of a questionable thing. Romney wants to make China play by the same rules in the way that he wants to push back taxes and make sure that it's easier for us to kind of work in those areas. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't owe too much to China. And it's again one of those issues where we're the youngin'. I mean, we're the youngin' in this area, and so we have to increase diplomacy, but at the same time, increase our hegemony.
Go one more question.
One more question.
One more question.
One more question tonight. Job outsourcing. We all have very much questions about this. Romney has been accused of outsourcing his businesses in Massachusetts. What can you tell us about this? What would be advantages for America if we were to outsource businesses or companies, or if we were not to?
Okay. Again, a multifaceted thing. U.S. is really worried about outsourcing right now, and it's because our employment is so high. I mean, we were at 8% for 43 months, and that is huge. And so the first thing we look at, of course, is where are our jobs going? I think it's important to look at, like, the U.S. manufacturers have become more competitive in China. To Romney, he wants to cut corporate taxes, he wants to reduce regulation, and he wants to make China make its currency rise. Obama has created tax breaks to those that produce domestically or bring back more taxes on overseas earnings. And the question is, like, will that help more corporations go overseas, or is it going to kind of push back, and will it help America? I think what it means for America is that what is going to happen is wages in China are rising, which means it's going to erode the cost advantages of pushing those jobs outsourced. So what we want to see is maybe more manufacturing jobs coming back to America, so we see a higher middle class. That's the hope. And I think with both of these plans, they're very similar. What it'll depend on is whether or not the economy bounces back as fast as we want it to.
Well, thank you, Shelby, for great answers tonight.
Thanks.
We will be right back, and Jamie will be telling us about the new polls elections.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, I actually have Arizona's results right now being called in Romney's favor. Romney wins with a 56 to 42 percentage, and with Arizona's 11 electoral votes, that means Obama has 163 votes and Romney has 174 as of right now. So right back to you, Megan.
We'll be right back after the break. You are watching Decision 2012, brought to you by the UNC Bear News.